Welcome to Art Bazaar, a podcast that chats with artists of all types to explore the depths of creativity. Brought to you by the Alternative Gallery. We'll be releasing new episodes every Wednesday with bonus episodes dropping randomly. If you like what you're hearing, you can support this podcast by going to thealternativegallery.com and clicking on the podcast tab. I'm your host, Brandon Wonder, Creative Director of the Alternative Gallery, a non-profit arts organization in Allentown, PA, run through the efforts of dedicated volunteers. On this episode of Art Bazaar, we're chatting with Kylee Tirado, a visual artist from Allentown working in various mediums, including illustration, painting, and photography. You can check out Kylie's work by visiting their Instagram at kylee.tirado. And this Thursday, October 3rd, Kylee will be having their first solo show from 6 to 8 p.m. at Bradbury-Sullivan. The exhibition is titled Metamorphosis and will be on display throughout the month of October. We'll, of course, be chatting all about that show as well as much more on today's episode. Hello, Kylee. Welcome to Art Bazaar.
Hello.
How you doing on this Monday?
Very good.
I appreciate you coming by. You know, we kind of put this together last second. We had another episode scheduled, and I saw, wait, Kylie's show is this week. We got to chat with Kylee.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man.
No, thank you. I'm glad we can help each other out by doing this. So, you know, it's just the AG guys, so we can just push that back a week, no problem. We were going to talk about Peter's show, which you were there. What did you think about Peter's show?
Peter's show was amazing. I was so excited for it when I first, saw that it was coming out and everything. So
yeah, because you've seen his work on and off here over the years. Everything he's been hanging up and printing. Did you realize the extent of how many pieces he was going to have hanging up?
I know he's mentioned that he has a lot of pieces, but I guess maybe I didn't realize how many.
Yeah.
But he's shown me a little bit too, so I was really stoked for it.
Yeah, it was a great exhibit, but unfortunately, I saw one of those things which doesn't usually happen at our events, especially at the Americas, where people kind of came, did a lap, looked at the art, and left right away. No one, they didn't congeal and hang out like we typically see. And I think that's because people that were showing up, they were all kind of very random, didn't know one another, and no one was talking to one another.
Oh, gosh.
And they were just leaving. And it's how unfortunate. Because I remember when you and I first met at one of the artist meetups we did, it was at the Silk Lounge at Brewworks.
Yes.
And you walked in, and I made sure, because I could tell you didn't know anybody.
Oh, yeah.
And I made sure to come up, and I had to make sure you were aware that people were interested in you being there.
Yeah, I was super nervous, and I wasn't really sure what to expect. I had just seen this thing on Facebook after going to one of the game nights. I was like, I have to go to this. It was my first artist meetup ever, and everyone made me just feel so welcome. And I have great friends now after that, too. I still talk to everybody that I met from that day.
I knew that night that you were going to end up just hanging with us.
I knew too.
It was just Kylee just fits so good. Your personality is just, you're so chill and you're awesome and you're thoughtful and you do great art too.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So for those who might not have seen your work before, how would you describe what kind of work you do?
It's kind of a mix between natural aspects and surreal aspects, kind of a mix of realism. It's kind of just what pops into my head, which is a very odd space.
Now, when you're creating work, how does your creative process work? When you start, do you already have a piece in mind? Or are you kind of figuring out as you go? Yeah,
so I end up having an idea and then I write that down immediately because I will forget. And then there's kind of a composition in my head, and I know the piece size already. I just have to kind of go and get it, design it, do some sketches on digitally, and then I process that onto a canvas and kind of go with it.
Nice. So you kind of have, I don't want to say a formula, but you have your process that you know that works and you stick with it, basically.
Yeah.
Great.
Sometimes it's procrastinating, but it definitely gets done.
Now, what's experimenting like for you in the studio?
It can be a million different things. I like working with clay and oil.
Interesting.
Kind of gives this bas relief effect.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So you kind of let the clay dry. It's like paper clay, so it has to be lightweight and mainly on wood panel. And then once that's dry, you gesso over it, and you're able to, work on oil with it and give it that same depth feel that you would. It's really fun to kind of experiment and see what you get.
So playing around with texture, basically.
Yeah.
And that air dries, I imagine, that clay.
Oh, yeah, very quickly, too, so it's easy to work with. You can even put, modeling paste on it and get some cool effects.
That's awesome. This past Saturday over at the Museum of Indian Culture here in Allentown, we had the Heritage Day, which Native American Heritage Month is in November, but it's too cold to do outdoor events for kiddos then, so they do it in September.
Yeah.
And one of the things they did, like they do a bunch of crafts related to different indigenous tribes across the Americas, and one of them is they got to make their own clay pots.
Oh, that's cool.
Little tiny mini clay pots, and they got a big hunk of clay, and that stuff was sopping wet when they left. And we're like, yeah, leave it sit out. It's going to take a few days at least.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really cool. I was actually surprised. It was the first one. I've been with the museum now for a few years, but I'm always busy during that day. This week we had no shows or anything, so I was there for it. I was surprised at how many kids and families were actually out for it. It's great.
That's awesome.
Engaging in the indigenous arts of the Americas, which is super, super cool. You've been out there for the festival, haven't you?
I haven't yet, but I do know some of the ladies that run it do come into the to work all the time.
Awesome.
So I get to see them quite often, and they recognize me.
Awesome. What was the initial path for you with art? Was it something you were already doing as a kid, or is it something you got into more as you were in school and becoming an adult?
Growing up, I actually had my oldest sister. She was an amazing artist, so I looked up to her for everything, really. I wanted to do what she wanted to do, even including her stealing her My Little Ponies all the time.
How much older was she?
15 years older than me.
Wow, that's a big age gap.
I was the oopsie baby.
Yeah, that happens.
The not expected one in 97.
You're what Bob Ross would call a happy accident.
Yes. But I always wanted to play with her art supplies, and I think she even let me use her stuff to make an Earth Day poster that, I eventually won, and so I gained a lot of my inspiration from her. But I remember just taking random things and just setting them down and then drawing them, just, because we lived in the country, there wasn't much else to really do, so you kind of had to make, up your own really thing to do in the middle of nowhere.
That's amazing that your sister was so supportive, especially with a big age gap like that. You figure she's like out just having a good old time with her friends.
Yeah, there was a lot of times where I think she'd get mistaken for my mom.
Ah, wow.
That would happen quite often.
Interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
I can understand that.
Yeah, but she's still a big supporter to this day, and she's an artist herself still. So we're still quite close, even though she lives quite far away.
Has she been out here to your studio or the any events here?
Not yet, but hopefully soon we'll be able to reconnect and have her come out here to see it.
Maybe for that December open house that we're planning.
Oh yeah,
that'd be a good time. I think it's going to be a big one.
Absolutely, yeah. Her kids are cool too. She's like the best mom. She's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have anyone else in your family aside from your sister who's creative?
Yeah, my one cousin. When I didn't have any siblings, so I would actually hang out with them and teach them art. And she ended up actually going to school to be an art educator.
That's
and
awesome.
Just recently graduated, and she
What?
told me, she tells people all the time, I used to teach her how to draw and do all these things and all these crafts. Made me cry. I was like, oh my God. I didn't realize I was that much of an inspiration to someone younger than me like that.
It's an amazing, because we work with a lot of younger people here, and sometimes you don't know what effect you're having until years later.
Absolutely.
It's a great feeling to know that you hopefully put somebody on the right path.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
How are you doing as an artist in the area here? I know there aren't a ton of events or things like that to take part in, but how's it going with your work? Do you find yourself getting involved with a lot of things in the area or having to go out of the area more?
I'd say it's kind of, I don't want to say quite 50-50. If there is an event going on, I just did Art in the Park, but that's only once a year. But I think the furthest I've ever traveled is Pittsburgh to go vend. Been to Harrisburg doing it, Scranton, New Jersey. I don't like New Jersey, though.
No?
No. I don't like driving there. So it's kind of, I will travel, and it's fun because you get to meet other artists and see other different places that have creative communities.
Yes.
So I've made a lot of friends, and even I did this NEPA Horror Fest in Scranton, and someone that saw me in Bethlehem recognized me there.
Awesome.
So it was really cool to see that.
The horror scene is very close and dedicated, so if somebody saw you somewhere, they'll probably be following the next one too.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm going to be there again this Saturday. They're doing their 10th anniversary.
Up in Scranton?
Yep, in Dixon City.
Nice. We have a show this Saturday, so I won't be able to make it.
Nah, it's all good. They have one every year, but they're going to have the Ladies of Elm Street.
Nice.
Yeah, you're going to get to meet a bunch of actors, and it's going to be really fun. Everyone dresses up.
I used to do the horror convention circuit as a vendor for years. So I used to hang out that was a big extended family, all those people. So I probably know a bunch of them.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a nice area, too. I don't mind driving up there, get to see all the Poconos.
Yes, and perfect time of year to go up when the leaves are starting to change up there. Because, a little bit higher in elevation, it changes sooner than down here in the valley.
That fall foliage, yep.
So what did you do in Pittsburgh? I'm curious.
They had an Allentown night market. Funny
Allen?
enough.
Really?
There's an Allentown in Pittsburgh.
I did not know
surprisingly.
that.
I signed up for it thinking it was this Allentown. I'm like, that's crazy.
I got to go across the state.
Yeah, I mean, 5 hours. It was fun. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. It's, I love Pennsylvania has so much great nature, which this last year I've really started to appreciate Pennsylvania a lot more, doing more hiking and camping and things like that. Mm-hmm. But that drive across the state is rough.
Oh my gosh, especially at night, it's just darkness.
And it's just like one continuous highway, essentially.
Oop.
Lots of anti-evolution billboards and things related to such. And I'm like, this is insane.
Yeah.
I can't believe people are putting this. Like, why would you put that on a billboard in a highway? It's just crazy. Like, you expect to see, like, oh, here's a motel, get some McDonald's, something like that. Anti-evolution, that's not really something you want to ponder while you're driving, I think.
Yeah, or pay for to have displayed up there, I guess.
So when you go on road trips, are you listening to music or podcasts, bringing a friend along? What do you do?
If I usually bring my partner if it's more than an hour. If it's an hour, I can usually handle it, but the Pittsburgh drive, I was like,
Yeah.
I'm going to need somebody else to drive that night. I usually just put on I have something called my creative playlist of like my favorite songs. Sometimes I'll put on a podcast or two though, if it gets a little, monotonous.
Yeah, I know a lot of people listen to podcasts in their cars, but that's not, I don't know. I like music when I'm driving. It's like a soundtrack to the scenic view you're looking at your window.
Yeah, it's like the movie score.
Yeah,
really.
yeah, but maybe I have a very cinematic mind, so maybe that's why I'm like that.
Yeah.
But, people do a lot of micro learning. Do you do that at all? It's like, you see these things, these ads popping up now. It's like, oh, replace doom scrolling with micro learning. And I've tried a couple of these apps, and, they're interesting, but it's just like a quick synopsis of a book and they expect you to learn. It's like, well, that's still kind of like memorization. But, you of course hit a paywall where it's like, oh, we want you to fully unlock this. We want to have you sign up for a monthly fee. And it's like, You ever do anything like that?
Not really. I'm more of a visual learner. So sometimes reading doesn't allow me to comprehend as much as it would be like visually tactile, things like that.
When you're reading, your brain is wandering.
Yeah.
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 I know, it's tough sometimes.
It is. I used to read a lot more when I was younger, and maybe that was just an escape, but I want to get back into it.
Yeah, I've made a larger effort to read more this year, and it was going good for a while until about like a month ago when my life got so busy that I haven't even thought about reading since right this second.
Oh, gosh.
But yeah, I know how it is. Like, I look at my desk. I got stacks of books everywhere. Things that I intend to read or things that I've partially read. A lot of good reference stuff. But, I'm jealous of those people that can just sit down and read a whole book in one sitting.
Yeah, no.
And I know several people like that. It's like, I feel like it's more of like a technical person, though.
Yeah, like my partner has been reading this series, The Expanse, because they watched the show, but they've just been nonstop reading. I'm like, how do you do that? I wish I could do that again.
How did you do in school? Like, was it difficult for you to pay attention?
For the most part, sometimes I was very much the like good at reading and art and the right side of the brain. And when it came to like sciences and math,
The technical stuff.
I really hated it.
Yeah. You know what? I'm almost 40 years old, and I'm still grateful that I'm not in school.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't stand school. Because, like, with how I am as a person, as a creative person, like, the public school education system just wasn't for me. I was so bored. I was so disinterested. I didn't pay attention. I had, in high school, studio communication, which was, like, film class. So every morning we would do the morning announcements. So we'd do, like, the 15-minute morning announcements, and then from there, we got to start making skits and little things like that we would include in the morning announcements, and then started doing every other day. We would do a film study class, and that's where I first saw Twin Peaks.
Oh, that's cool.
My teacher showed us Twin Peaks in high school, which was so amazing, and he's pretty laid back. He actually let me bring in Scarface, who watched it in high school, which was super not allowed. But like, if it weren't for that, I don't know if I would have been engaged in school at all. We didn't have charter schools back then, like they have now. Like, looking back now and understanding the kind of person I am, that would have been the ideal place for me. But it wasn't an option. And I see so many creative kids out there who are stuck in public schools. It's like, that's what we got to get them into. Actually, I would argue that charter schools are what the public school system should be.
Yeah, because we can always take a page out of like Germany in their school system, where you take a test and based off of what you want to do in life, you go to school for that and you learn how to do that so that you're ready. Like, kind of like the tech schools we have.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, you go to CCTI or CCTI. I don't know which
L
one.
Tri-C?
Yeah, the one next to the college, though.
Okay.
They have programs where you could do graphic design and, HVAC, things that you'll actually use and want to do. That kind of stuff would be really helpful, I think, to most people, but not have to, be pushed to do it.
Now, right now, if you were going to college right now and you had to study one of those two things you just mentioned, graphic design or HVAC, which one would you take?
Graphic design, that's what I technically have in
That's what you would lean to.
in.
But
Yeah.
the reason I ask is because it's funny you mentioned that, because they say HVAC is one of the jobs that's the safest from automation and AI, and graphic design is one of the least safe. So
Oh
it's
my God,
funny
yeah.
you mentioned those two. Literally, those are two examples that I constantly hear mentioned in articles about automation and what it's going to do to the workforce.
Yeah. I've actually had a few friends. I have one friend that's going to college for graphic design, and he's super worried. Is this even worth it? Because of will it be able to do it in the future?
Do they address it all in college? Do the professors talk about this, or they just teach nothing else is going on or changing?
I know they've kind of acknowledged it to my knowledge, but I don't know if they're technically super concerned.
Yeah. Are they implementing AI in these graphic design courses in any way?
Not that I'm aware. I went to college back in 2018. I graduated, so there was no even thought of it.
Yeah.
Now
that's,
I'm not
and
too
that's
sure.
that's only 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Think about so recent.
Oh yeah.
And that
Oof.
wasn't even on anyone's radar. And now it's in the last year and a half, it's changed everything.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
It makes me angry, really, as far as the art part of it.
Well, yeah. I mean, at least in the United States, it's so difficult to get people to support small artists, right?
Exactly.
It's and now we've just devalued their work even further.
Right.
It's a very necessary conversation for creative folks to have. And I think this goes back a lot to what we were talking about last year when we were doing the artist takeovers, about how I really think we need an art union.
Yeah.
Especially local ones, to protect small emerging artists, because once you get to a certain point, you don't need as many protections. I mean, you need larger protections in some ways, and in some ways you don't need the same protections. But it's it's almost luck at this point to get to that point, because you're not being nurtured. There aren't a lot of options. And we want to kind of help people get to that point where they can sustain themselves from their art.
Oh, absolutely.
Which,
yeah.
how close are you to making a living off of your work?
Not very. It's definitely the dream, and I like to consider my current job my side gig.
Yeah.
In a way, because I am very passionate about what I do and would love to do it full time, instead of, my energy is so depleted by the end of the day that it's struggled to push myself to even do stuff anytime. You kind of have to make connections along the way and then hope that those come into fruition later on.
Yeah.
That's what's kind of
I think
happened.
you're doing it right by going out to a bunch of different cities and doing events. I think that's the way to do it.
Plus, you're traveling and getting to go see things and have fun. I like road trips, personally.
There's so much. I mean, that's, as an artist, as a human being in general, but especially as an artist, traveling is so great for you.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's eye-opening. It's just refreshing to see something new, even if it's slightly similar to where you came from. I had a conversation with somebody earlier today talking about how I think a lot of us artists, we're not as interested in the business side of things. The way I explained it to someone recently was that spending so much time talking on the business side of things is boring to me. It's and I understand that business is a necessity, but to me it's a necessity in the way of putting on your socks or putting on your pants, right?
Right.
You got to do those things, but who wants to spend all day talking about it? It's kind of just a thing you have to do. And I find that artists who are very creative, they don't want to spend a lot of time getting involved in the business side of things. And I know one of the things I hear time and time again from artists recently is how over social media they are. And, the algorithm and having to spend money to reach your audience that you used to have a natural reach to, now you have to pay money for them to see your content. And it's what I think most artists in our situation want is they can just hide away, make some stuff, come out. They know there's a market once a month or something like that they can just take their work down there and sell their stuff. Is that kind of more of an ideal situation for what you're trying to do?
Oh, absolutely. For me, Instagram is just more of a portfolio and a way for me to make sure people know what I have going on. Otherwise, I kind of just share silly memes when I'm feeling goofy, but
No, and that's a great way to look at it, like a portfolio. Here's my information if you want to reach out.
Yeah, where you can direct somebody to.
Yes.
Pretty much.
But I think now, because social media has become, and I'm not just talking about the arts, just general human existence at this point, it's become like a necessity.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't know, like I took most of the summer away from social media, spending time in nature, doing some traveling. It was so great for me because I feel like I like the advantages of using social media, but I dislike the fact that it feels like a necessity now.
It kind of feels like a chore.
Yes.
Like, okay, let's
It's
go
a job.
on and do all of this. And then, you don't, even if you don't get much back from it, too.
Yes. Yeah. And to really make it work for you, you got to spend, first of all, you got to know what you're doing. You got to do the research into the steps that what worked a year ago probably isn't going to work today.
Yeah.
What worked 5 years ago absolutely doesn't work today unless it came back in vogue somehow. Because, like, it was difficult for me to switch gears because I was working on Animation Fest stuff all day today, right? I'm burnt out because I'm, going through tons of films and scheduling things and trying to promote ticket sales. And seeing how these platforms are constantly changing how you do the most basic of things is tiring. It's like as soon as you learn, a few months later you have to relearn because it's always changing, which change is good. But some of these changes feel so unnecessary.
Oh, yeah.
I almost feel like it's intentional to keep you using the platform to keep you there, because something someone told me recently was that there are certain ways to post on Facebook. Like if you post a link, for example, your post is much less likely to be seen because they want you to stay within Facebook as much as possible.
Oh, yeah.
How much time do you typically spend on social media these days? Is it less than you used to?
Yeah, probably less than I used to. I used to be back in middle school, like way more into Facebook and everything because it was new and this really cool thing where you could talk to your friends after school and not have to like text everybody.
Yeah.
Now it's like, okay, this is everything business, and then Facebook is like for silly, goofy memes if I'm feeling up to it.
I feel like the things that make these places cool, like, Netflix was super cool because it was the only streaming site, right? And they had everything.
I had the DVD Netflix for
me
the
too.
Wii.
Oh.
And I still have it.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember when that was a thing, and then you had to get everything mailed to you and then send it back.
The red envelopes, yeah.
Yep.
I was actually working at Blockbuster Video when Netflix launched the mail service before they had online streaming or anything like that. And I tried telling like my district manager and everyone above me, I'm like, you got to take this serious. They didn't think anything of it. The people I spoke to, at least, they didn't think it was going to do anything. And it's like, look, you need to take this serious. And you should shift to don't get rid of rentals because that's going to still have its place, but pivot more towards retail and cheap retail. And I've talked about this in the past, like Blockbuster, because they bought so few new DVDs, they were super expensive. They were like $35.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm talking about like when I was in high school, $35 for a DVD that you can go down the street to like Best Buy and it's like $20 cheaper. Who's going to buy it? A Blockbuster, right?
Right.
Because they put no priority on it. So they just didn't keep up with it. But when I worked at Blockbuster, I thought the service was so amazing because they offered way more things you can get there in store. I was telling customers to use Netflix, and I guess I was part of the downfall of Blockbuster in my own little tiny minute way, which I regret. I definitely regret now because I like these physical brick and mortar stores. But like all the things that made these services cool, they just I think they forgot what made them cool and were they were never really satisfied with how much valuation their company was. It always had to increase. Always like, where's the roof for you guys? Like, when are you going to be satisfied? Like, okay, we hit the ceiling of where we want to be. We're good. We got a good thing going here. Let's keep it going. And I think the same thing with like Facebook, man. Facebook used to be the coolest thing.
Oh, yeah.
And now it's like, you just want to hit your head against the wall.
My sisters had MySpace. That was all the rage. I never had one, but I remember they were always like coding stuff on it and everything about it. I was like, oh, this is weird.
Yeah. So, I know because a lot of artists, they don't make a ton of money on their work, but they love other art. Do you find yourself like trading art a lot, especially at like vending events?
Oh yeah, at events. I remember I went to the Philly punk rock flea market, and this guy really resonated with my work, and he made these glass jewelry things. So I have like a glass eyepiece because we traded some work. So it's always fun to do trades and things like that, especially when people resonate with it. Not just to do it. It's like, I really like this thing. If you like any of my stuff, let's do a cool trade.
Oh, that's a perfect reason to do it.
Yeah.
What is your collection of art like? You have a lot of stuff that you've got like that?
Not that way. I've bought art, and I have a few prints from Chris. He's like, yeah, I have some prints.
Chris
I'm like,
P. Jones.
Chris P. Jones.
Yeah.
Yeah. So not too much, but I wish I could have more.
Yeah. It's funny, we actually had on Peter, it's funny because both you and Peter back-to-back weeks have your first solo shows.
Yeah.
Which I think is amazing. On Thursdays, basically at the same time frame too. On the podcast last week that Peter did, somebody left a comment on our YouTube about how they wish they weren't so broke so they can buy more art. And I left a comment, I was like, hey, the people that founded the Alternative Gallery, we're in the exact same position, and we try to make art super affordable. I mean, Peter, for example, had like $20 prints.
Yeah.
You know, smaller prints, but $20. We here at the Alternative Gallery, we try to make, I mean, we have a ton of pieces under $100, under $50. Like, we try to make it affordable in that way. And I think that's one thing people don't realize. Like, there is affordable art out there.
Oh, absolutely.
Not all of it's super expensive.
Yeah, like when I do my tables, I try to have a bunch of different options so that I always tell people, I'm like, it's accessible. I want you to be able to buy a piece of art, whether it's on a button, whether it's on a sticker, whether it's a smaller print, you know, be able to buy that. If I'd make little hand-painted magnets, because it's cool. It's like cool stuff that people want, but it doesn't have to be. I do oil paintings, so they do tend to be more expensive. Oil paint's not cheap, but I do try to make sure everyone can get something if they want it.
And I think someone is more likely to throw a cool magnet on their refrigerator than they are to hang a painting on their wall.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately, but, you know, it's understandable, especially with money being tight for a lot of people. All right, so let's talk about your upcoming show at the Bradbury-Sullivan Center. How did this come together? Did you make work specifically for the show? Is it a certain collection or series of work, or is it a mix of everything you've been up to?
It's kind of a mix, and it is intentional, too. I had met up with a friend who had been working at the center, and they said, hey, we're doing these queer galleries, you know, connect with this guy, Peter, and see if you wanted to do a show there. I'm like, oh, absolutely. I'd love to. So I connected with him. I actually met him at another show I did. I was like, yeah, I want to do October because that gives me a whole year to procrastinate and work on it. So
you scheduled this a year in advance?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Wow, very nice.
I know myself too well. Yeah.
You needed some time to overthink it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
As everything.
I joke about that all the time. I was like, I need to go home just so I can stress about something.
Yeah.
Overthink it, right?
Yeah. Or in my car, just sit for like 3 hours.
So you spend 11 and a half months overthinking it, and you spend the last 2 weeks pounding out creations, right?
Yep. Then the biggest paintings I've ever done in my entire career.
Really?
Yeah. So I have like a 24 by 48 and then a 24 by 36 painting. The other one I actually started before I had the studio, and then finished it when I started the residency program. And then the other one I finished in the entirety of it. So it's been really helpful to have that space in order to be able to get this into fruition the way I wanted it to.
Well, I guess since we're talking about that, and we can still touch on the Bradbury show because that's the main thing we want to draw people to, the Resident Artist Program. It's the last day of September. We're recording this episode on Monday. We released it this Wednesday. We're technically in the last day of the pilot program, of which you were a part of.
Oh, that's wild.
Right? First of all, thank you for being a part of it.
Thank you for having me.
And we're about to launch now another full year. We were able to pull off another year, which you're going to continue to hang on board for.
Yes.
What has this program been like for you?
It's been great. I live very close, so I've been able to work in a space specifically just for art, not in my tiny studio apartment, trying to keep my dog away from the oil paints and everything. And it's my own space. I don't have to worry about being in somebody else's way or cleaning up everything. And, you know, if I want to cry on the floor because something didn't go right, I can absolutely do that.
I love it.
Floor time.
No, and and that's important. I think having your own space is a really important element. And one of the things, for those that don't know what we did with the Resident Artist Program is, you know, even here at the building, a lot of our studios are unaffordable to local artists because, you know, the real estate company that currently owns the building, they're basing it on what market value is, whatever that means. You can explain it to me 10,000 times. I'm just going to think you're making shit up, whatever. And they are making it up because we're in Allentown. We're in our own section of Allentown. There is no market aside from this building.
Everything's made up.
We are our own market, right? So it's just unaffordable, especially when you do like multiple month security deposit, which a lot of artists who are part of that Resident Artist Program, that's kind of what kept them from being main tenants in this building, was they wanted like 3 months, 4 months to move in. It's like, who could afford that? You know, if a studio is $500 and you need 4 months to move in, I'm sorry, I don't know most artists that have $2,000 they can just throw around like that. That's a lot of money. So what we did is we were able to put together a program with some funding that we had gotten and get a block of studios from the building owner and make them super, 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 super affordable. And I think in most cases, the artists are paying less than a half and even a third of the asking price of the studio. And I know for artists like you, it's made it a situation where you may not have been able to afford a studio before. Now it's accessible.
Yeah.
And what a lot of artists have done in the past is to make it more affordable, they've shared a studio.
Right.
And I'd say 9 times out of 10 that did not go well.
Yeah, I can believe that.
It did not go well. And that is one of those things, like, you know, in the resident artist agreement that we put together, we have a clause in there specifically against sharing studios because we saw how it goes down. And I think it's important that people have their dedicated space, like you just said. So I'm very grateful that you have it.
Yeah, I'm very grateful to have it.
And I'm glad it's working for you.
Yeah.
And you've been pumping out a lot of art, it seems, from there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, I'll be there sometimes till like 12 or 1 in the morning. And then I'm like, okay, I gotta stop. Because I'm very much a perfectionist. So I'll keep working on it until I'm like, don't touch it anymore. But I really enjoy the space. And then when Brandon and I, you know, end up being up there at the same time,
Brandon
it's really
Dominguez.
nice. Yeah, we do some studio walks. We get to kind of see what each other's working on. You know, he'll be like, hey, are you going to be there? I'm like, yeah. So it's nice when our schedules kind of hook up like that.
And you know what? And did you know Brandon prior to this? Or did you guys kind of just meet as you came into the program together?
I knew of him, and I think I had met a few times beforehand. And then at his show, Succulus, we got to talk a bit about more. And then we've been able to get closer since we've both been a part of the residency.
He is so solid.
Oh, he is. Yeah.
Everyone that I know that like spends, 10 minutes talking to him just gushes about him afterwards.
He's a breath of fresh air.
But
He's great to talk to.
I think part of it is because he is from Mexico. And like I just did that trip to Mexico last month. And man, everybody there was so sweet. They were the nicest, kindest, most thoughtful people. And to be an artist on top of that, in an area that he sees needs more art and culture. Because when you go to Mexico City and you come back to Allentown, you're like, where the fuck is the culture?
Yeah.
And I don't just mean people of different races or backgrounds. I'm talking about the celebrations of culture visibly present around every turn. Like, it was overwhelming how much culture there was in Mexico City. It was incredible.
That's awesome.
And it's the kind of place that I want my city to be. And not just my city, but my desire is that every place I go to is pretty much the coolest place in the world. That's the world I want to live in.
Yeah.
And that was part of the hope with the resident artist program, is that we would bring these artists in as a group with that amazing group photo of all you resident artists, and that all of you felt like you were in it together. That you didn't just feel like, oh, I'm just here by myself, getting a studio. And I think that's really an advantage that you all had over other artists that just came into this building as a tenant on their own. They're just kind of coming in. They're the new kid on the block. They don't really know anyone too well. They don't know the lay of the land. Here you all came in as a group, in it together. And did you feel the camaraderie when it started?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I had known a few, like Emily and David, from a lot of the meetups.
Rugged Imperfections.
And we're good friends now. I had them at a curation at the store, and it's been really great. And Mikey, I see sometimes
Mikey,
too.
our stained glass buddy up there on the 4th floor.
Really, it just feels as though, like, we might not see each other all the time, but when we do, we just kind of pick up where we left off, really.
That's great. And prior to the pandemic, we were doing open houses every month, which was awesome because it was constantly bringing people in, but it was a ton of work.
Yeah.
Because, open house, it's the basement, it's the 1st floor, it's the 4th floor, people are going up and down the staircase, they're hanging out the back. So it's like having to constantly prepare the entire building from essentially roof to basement once a month was too much. So that, amplified by our changing schedule, we no longer do the regular monthly open houses, but we're trying to make it a priority to do them more regularly.
Yeah.
So we had the one that was back in June, which that was a great open house. That we
Oh my
had.
gosh, yeah.
That was a really good one. What was your experience like at the open house back in June?
That was really great. I had a bunch of friends from work, family. The cousin I had mentioned prior
Awesome.
came to visit. She had just graduated and she was about to go back home.
Her first visit here?
Yep.
What did she think?
She really liked it. She swapped some stickers with people. I know she grabbed Catcher in the Rye from Crispy Jones.
Crispy Jones is always pushing those copies of Catcher.
I told her to go over there and get one.
That's great. That's great. I'm sure that made his night.
Oh, absolutely. And I got to meet a bunch of people, which was really nice, and to show off what I was working on and doing.
For this upcoming one, because there aren't really vending events in the area. And if there are, I'm not aware of them, unfortunately. Which, if there are and we are not aware of them, please let us know. We will share them. Even if our artists can't make it out, we at least want to let people know to go check it out and support the artists who are there. It's not about just the artists here in the building. Show support and spread the love. And we got to have each other's backs in this, I feel, right? Yeah. We're trying to put a lot more artists in that event that will have vending tables, too.
Oh, that's awesome.
Remember the kid that had the 3D printed stuff?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He sold out like half his stuff like before we even opened.
I know a bunch of my friends were like, oh my gosh, look at these things I got. I'm like, where did you get those?
Yeah. And he charges way too little for them. It's like $6 for like a huge thing that he 3D printed himself.
Man, that stuff's expensive.
I know, and it takes a good deal of time. Like he's charging $8 for something that took like 18 hours to print. I'm like, dude, you can't really pump a lot of these out. That's amazing. He's coming back for the next one.
That's good.
I've been trying to get him to custom make me a Godzilla. Let's see if he shows up with it. But yeah, so if you know any artists that would benefit from having a little pop-up at the open house in December, let me know.
Absolutely, yeah.
So going back to the Bradbury show, is that show hung already or do you still have to hang it?
I'm preparing tonight and then we're going to be hanging it tomorrow.
Tomorrow's the day.
Yep.
How many pieces roughly?
I have about 4 pieces going in, 2 larger ones, 1 kind of medium, and then a smaller one.
Very cool, very cool. And it's going to be this Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m.
Yes.
Is there any other details you want to share about that event?
Just come out, hang out. I always tell people I don't necessarily go over what the pieces are about because they are a bit subjective and they're kind of personal to me. But I want them to make other people feel some type of way and resonate with it in their own way without knowing what the real meaning is.
Do you get frustrated when people ask you what the meaning of artwork is?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
I understand they have good intentions of it, but it's hard for me to necessarily explain it all the time.
What do you think their intentions are? I'm curious.
Just to kind of maybe understand, because they are a little odd.
Yeah.
It's bugs with eyes and other different variants like that, and big flowers, like what's going on in my head, right?
I think part of it is people really on the spot, maybe are awkward and self-conscious and don't know what to ask or say to an artist. So they have to go to the cliche of, well, what does it mean? Like, I don't think a lot of people actually are curious what it means. I think they don't know what else to say.
Yeah. I mean, I've gotten people go up like, oh, that looks like that. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. I'm down with that.
How about those people that come up and try to tell you what you should paint? Oh, that's cool. Maybe next time you should add this into it. Do you get that?
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
I've gotten one where someone went up, looked at my table and went, I just don't know where I'd put it. And I was like, that's okay.
You're allowed to keep thoughts to yourself, people.
Yeah.
You don't have to blurt things out.
Yeah, that was she really had no filter.
It's like, seriously, just say hello, little wave, move on to the next thing. Like, people just, they can't, I don't know.
I just kind of sit there and smile at it. Like, I work like customer service, so like I'm kind of used to weird comments like that. But it's like, okay, that's fine.
It kind of drives me nuts when people treat artists like a different species or some kind of alien race. Yeah,
I mean, I'm okay with that if they think that.
Well, I think they just fall apart when attempting to interact, and it just becomes like, how many more of these do I want to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think we just view the world differently than other people.
Absolutely.
And we just put it out there in a different way.
Yeah. So you mentioned, where you work over at Blick, the art material store.
Yes.
It's not just it's a job, but at the same time, you're still connected with so many moving pieces of the art community.
Oh, absolutely. Plus, I curate like an Artist of the Month show there because I do a lot of outreach and I'm trying to basically rebuild the connection to the community of artists. Like, we're having an artist demonstration for a local artist there. He's going to come in and show his whole process, and I want to continue to do that so that artists can maybe get a little bit more spotlight in the community that may not already have it.
That's very nice, the fact that you're trying to do that. And it's, of course, a place where people are already curious and interested in art. So it's good placement. It's especially good when we have so few places that are really dedicated to the arts in the area.
Yes.
So to be able to have that, I think is kind of essential.
We used to years ago, and then COVID hit, and a lot more rules got put into place, and we weren't able to do that. Now I've been given more of an opportunity to regain that community back like we used to have.
So they stopped doing the artist exhibitions there, because I know that, like, for years and years and years they always had art there, and they stopped doing that for a while.
No, well, the Artist of the Month was kind of run by a few people, and then I kind of took it over, and we don't take any commission for that. That all goes to the artist.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, we would have no way to do that, and I'm not really interested in doing that either. So they get full commission if people sell that, and then we've had artwork from like Alex Cole and people from years that's still up.
Wow.
We currently have like a long-term artist. So if you've been shopping there for a while, I try to like give people an opportunity to have their work there and sell it. Like, I as an artist know how difficult it can be. And there's art creatives there and so many different people and walks of life that come through there. You know, you might find the right one that's really interested in a piece, and because they had it there or made that connection, that can really help an artist that way.
Yeah, for sure. What do you think local artists in this area need to kind of like help step things up for them?
I don't know, just like a better way of navigating what's going on, because I feel like sometimes stuff will happen and people will be like, I didn't know that was happening.
Yeah.
And they weren't told about it. And I'm like, I didn't either. Or I try to like send messages to people. I'm like, hey, I think you'd like this event. Like, let's do this. So maybe less gatekeeping.
Yeah.
I don't want to use that word necessarily, but
No,
it
use
is
it, because I
true.
think it's true. I think part of it is gatekeeping, and I think another maybe even bigger part of it is because I think the people that are involved with some of the places we rely on, it's not that they have bad intentions, but maybe they just don't fully know what they should be doing.
Right.
Which makes them not the right people for the position. Not
Yeah.
trying to attack anyone. It's just, I think, a plain fact. There's been so many Facebook groups over the years dedicated to like, oh, here are all the events going on in Lehigh Valley, and they seem to maybe be good for a while and then fizzle out. I guess the point is, for these things, it shouldn't be that we have to have this dumb luck to have the right person that's on top of things. We need to create a system or an environment or an organization that always flows and operates that way, so that doesn't have to be dumb luck.
Yeah.
And, you know, like we talked about the maybe potentially one day having an art union, you know, organization in that way. Or, you know, in the digital age, I still think print is so important.
Yes.
I think we need to have an online newsletter that is also in print.
I agree. Yeah.
You know, if we can get our act together, and when I mean we, I mean as a community of artists and arts organizations and art establishments, where we're planning shows far enough in advance, we're communicating those shows to one another, because like I see it happening a lot, and it happened recently where, you know, there's not communication between other events, that there could be a big benefit from that.
Absolutely.
And it's like, why not take advantage of that?
Yeah.
Right? Because like me, maybe it's because I'm not so much the business oriented side of things. I don't view other places as competition. We need to connect the dots. We need to collaborate. And it's probably because I'm a filmmaker and it's a collaborative medium art, so I'm already expecting to have to work with others. And I think maybe someone that's more solo, they operate a little differently. But like, no one place is going to do it on their own.
Yeah, exactly.
And if that's the case, why hasn't Arts Quest made every artist in the Lehigh Valley rich? Even as many resources that Arts Quest may have, they can't do it on their own either. So no matter how big of an organization it is, they can't get it done. And I would argue that the bigger an organization gets, the less able they are to do those things.
Right.
Because I think you have too many stops along the way to the top of the decision-making process to really fully get a feel for what's going on.
Kind of spreads it out pretty thin to a point.
Getting too big for their own good.
Yeah.
Too many chains of command, too many cooks in the kitchen, like too separated from what's going on in the trenches. You know, like an organization like Alternative Gallery, we're a tiny organization, all volunteer run. The guy that runs everything here, you know, is still cleaning the toilets and shoveling the snow and talking to neighbors about issues and trying to talk to artists about issues. I'm very aware. And no matter how big our organization may grow, I would never, not that I want to clean toilets forever, but I want to be in touch with the actual needs of my community. And I think that's lacking in a lot of ways. obviously we have organizations, but maybe they don't know what we really need or don't have the resource to give us what we need. And even though there are organizations there, like we still need something.
Yeah, I mean, like the get-togethers, I do feel like help everybody kind of congregate in one space, which gets conversations going because the intention there is to talk and network and speak to people. So, you're talking about things going on and networking that way. So maybe even like more networking things, not constantly.
Yeah.
But enough where like people are more in the loop and they're talking face to face, not just like on a Zoom call or via like Facebook messaging. Like they're talking to people face to face and they're not worried about social anxiety and things like that.
Sure. Do you think once a month is probably too much, right?
Yeah, I think that's
how I
too
felt.
much.
Like every other month, something like that. Like
yeah, I just feel like getting to talk to people and then you get to also just be in that moment there too.
Sure. And that was a big thing with the artist takeovers is like, I had this realization that the only time I saw a lot of my artist friends that weren't immediately either affiliated with the gallery or have like studios here, the only time I saw those people was like at events or shows or like we're vending, and it's great to see them there, but it's like you're only seeing them at work because at the end of the day, whether we're getting paid or not, it's still work.
Yeah.
We might love it, but it's still work. And I was like, let's just do these events where artists of kind of all backgrounds, not just visual artists, not just musicians, like dancers, filmmakers, right? Throw it all in there together. Let's hang out, right? Because I think that's what creative communities need the most. Just mix it all together and don't have a theme to it. Don't have a schedule. Don't have vendors. Just come and hang out and talk to people. And I knew how foreign that was to a lot of people because when I told them about the event, like, well, what do I do? Do I bring my art? Do I bring this? Do I bring them? Like, just come out and hang out. Yeah. Maybe bring some business cards, but that's it. People were so confused by the idea because it's not something that's really present, and not just in the Valley. I think in a lot of places, because I think when people come up with an idea for something, they try to like overly structure it. Like they're afraid to try things. So they have to like pre-plan it as much as they can to make sure it's perfect.
Yeah, I mean, when you have a bunch of creative people in one room, they're going to create that space naturally. I feel like you don't have to kind of put them to structure or a certain itinerary. They don't work like that.
Yeah.
And plus we're all very like hermit like people, I feel like sometimes. So you kind of have to just put us all in one room and force us all to talk to each other to get something, going. But it in the end, I always feel like very comfortable doing that, even though you kind of have to push yourself too.
Yeah, and we did a lot of them over at the Americas Hotel. We did the one at the Allentown Brew Works, and we're trying to do them at other locations. But it's like I want to only do them at independent places, of course.
Right.
I don't want to do them like a big chain or anything like that. Like, especially if it's at a bar or restaurant, because if there's going to be 50, 75 artists out there, the place is going to do pretty decently as far as food and drinks.
Yeah.
And you want that to go to the right place, right? And it's like in Allentown, you have a few, but now I think we need to do one in Bethlehem for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
We talked about doing one at the Ice House, but the problem with the Ice House is like they don't have food and stuff there, and parking is a little tough.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, parking is really tough there.
Yeah, I've vended there a few times.
Yeah.
You have to go real early to get a good parking spot because everybody's going to the park and everything and biking. So it's not just people who were there for that. It's everybody using the park.
Yeah, the park is literally right there next to it. By the way, how are the vending events there? How have they been for you?
They're really good.
Yeah.
The Tape Swap Radio does the punk rock flea markets, which I really enjoy because you do get to see that the physical media is not dead. Like people really enjoy buying like records and zines. Like my buddy does a zine.
Kylie, look at my office. Of course, it's not dead.
But it's so good to see that at every punk rock flea market I do, people really enjoy kind of thrifting and things like that and getting kind of old stuff that people either find or just have around their house.
Well, I think one of the consequential things that happens with something that gets discarded and is not of value to the larger public is what is cheap becomes cool. And then what is cool is no longer cheap.
Yeah.
So it's like VHS became cool, not just for nostalgic reasons, but because they were super cheap. I mean, you were going to places like the Salvation Army was like 10 for 50 cents, 10 for $1.
Oh, yeah.
There were a lot of times I struggled to even walk out of there with 10 tapes. I'm like, I found 3. Here's $1 anyways. Now, because they caught on that it's cool, they're not so cheap anymore.
Yeah.
And now they got people in the back scanning, knowing what to look for. So it's not going out on the shelves. It's going on eBay or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, Goodwill's the worst. They
God.
overly train people for that stuff. All the good stuff gets pulled out. It's a rarity, especially with like video games or music or especially movies. You almost never see any cool, interesting, rare items there anymore. It's mostly commons. And it's like you kind of took the fun out of going to thrift stores. Like, I know you're trying to make money here.
Yeah.
But man, these books, have you seen the book prices at Goodwill lately?
No, Goodwill freaks me out, if I'm being honest.
It is insane. Why does it freak you out?
I don't know. Maybe it's the one I went to, but everything was color coded.
Oh, yeah. No, they're all like that. They're all like that.
Oh, gosh. It was weird. I don't know. Something about it just gave me I thought I was in the back rooms or something.
Oh. So how it used to be for a long time was that Goodwill, a hardcover for a book would be like $1, and then a paperback would be like 50 cents, right?
Mm.
Now there are books there that are no lie, like $9, $10, $11.
Oh.
I'm like, what are you doing? Are you looking on eBay and giving like a reasonable price to what it's selling for online? Because that isn't why anybody's coming here. And then the next bad part is you have people that they're called scanners, where they have some kind of app on their phone that you scan a barcode on the back of an item and it will tell you how much it sells for on Amazon or eBay. And people will stay there all day scanning stuff. And it's like, I get it. You don't want to work for some crappy company. You want to try to work for yourself, and this is a way you found to make some income. I get it. But like, your desire to do that is really taking away from everyone that's coming in to find cool stuff. Because you're finding it and you're just flipping it right away. If you really want to be cool, go find that stuff and open a brick and mortar store.
Yeah.
I know you can't do that right out of the gate, but if you're doing well, I would say do that.
Might as well, yeah.
Because then you actually have a hub for creativity. Because a cool retail space like that, you're going to find those artists.
Yes.
That are vending at events like the punk rock flea markets and selling physical media.
Yeah.
Do you have any other vending events coming up?
Yeah, so I'm doing the one in Scranton at Dixon City, and then on Sunday it's actually in Allentown, the Gallow Hills Spirits. They are having the Festival of the Witch.
Where is that?
That is kind of behind how do I explain it?
On Lehigh Street?
Yeah, on Lehigh Street, but like a little bit before Emmaus, before Main Street. Yeah, so they have a spirits where they can get like wine and brew works, and they're actually, I think from what I've been told, I don't know if this is true 100%, but the people that own it have like descendants from the witch trials in Salem, so they're real into like witchy kind of stuff.
So they're out for revenge.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. I'm rooting for them.
But they had like a bunch of people sign up to vend, and they had to basically choose. So because they weren't able to hold that many people in.
Well, that's
space.
great. I think curation's important.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, like I just got done going through the films for Animation Fest, and I sent out the notifications yesterday for the films that weren't picked. I know curation's important, but man, it sucks.
Yeah.
Especially when people pay to like try to be a part of a thing, which we only do because we give out a big grand prize. That's the only reason we charge anything. We don't make any money on it. I want to give out an amount of money that's actually effective to the creator that is getting it, right?
Absolutely.
What is $500 going to do for a creator, right? I mean, our grand prize is $2,000.
Oh, wow.
And then we try to give out several $250 prizes for other categories. But I mean, even $2,000 is really nothing. But I mean, for us to be able to hand that to an artist, and we're doing it at the Roxy Theater, so we also have to run out the theater. So it's a nice chunk of change to make this event happen. But turning those artists down was like so heartbreaking to me. I was like kind of depressed yesterday doing it.
Yeah.
And then I felt bad. So I sent out an email to all those people just to like try to encourage them and be like, because I'm a filmmaker, I've tried to put stuff in festivals. I've gotten those rejections. I know how it feels. And I wanted to try to lift them up a little bit, even though I knew it wouldn't help everyone. Just saying, keep creating and keep sending us stuff. We loved what you sent, and we hope to keep seeing what you make in the future. And one person responded saying how getting that, like trying to uplift that email
Right.
only made it hurt more.
Oh.
And I was like, you made me feel even worse here. If you got that, like, I don't know, how do you think the average artist would take that?
I mean, I feel like it depends on their perspective of it. You know, some people will take it as like oh man, that's just really digging,
Yeah.
Into the wound. But I feel like some people might take that like, okay, yeah, maybe, and there's still a chance, to continue working and pushing and doing other things.
Yeah.
It's not the only thing to do. There's other opportunities. I think it's all the mindset
Sure.
of the artist.
Yeah. And, there's not one right thing for everyone in that situation, of course, and everyone's going to react differently. But it's, I've been in that situation before where you just gotta not select it and nothing. I'm like, that's the worst.
Not knowing, yeah,
That's the worst to me, And there are a number of reasons you can't pick things. And I'll say this about Animation Fest. One of the reasons we didn't pick some of those films is like there'll be like a 13, 14-minute film, which like should have been like a 7-minute film. Like they just drag it out. And it's like, why did you do that? It makes it hard to sit through.
Yeah.
Like it's one thing if it's just one film. But when you're watching like an hour and a half block of films and it's in there, you're watching one after the next, some of these become a chore to watch. And I think for anyone out there that's listening, if you are an animator or filmmaker, one of the best things you can do is volunteer for a film festival to go through films. Because even going to film festivals, you're only seeing the good stuff that got picked. You're not seeing the stuff that didn't get picked.
Right.
Like, for example, I don't know what it was this year, but we had like 5 films that were all about like seagulls stealing food from somebody. It was like this weird thing where
someone has a vendetta.
I don't know. Like, just a little tip for animators out there: don't do Little Red Riding Hood. And I don't care how clever of a take you think you have on it. It's been done to death. The seagull thing, I don't know. Like, it was really weird that we had like, I saw 3 in one day when I was going through animations, and there were like a couple more in addition to that. I'm like, were people just like writing their films at a beach and saw a seagull? And I don't know what it was.
What seagull hurt you?
Yeah, what seagull? Which seagulls? Because many must be the seagulls are on the attack this year, apparently, because they're really out there. And I've always heard the analysis that it's actually more difficult to make a short film than it is a feature film. Now, obviously, a feature film takes more time, more resources, but the idea behind it is that it's actually more difficult to tell a really intriguing story in a smaller amount of time. And I think that's really what the root of it is. And it's hard. And, I try to be understanding, too, because some of these young creators, like, they're figuring out the technical end of it while finding their voice, right? So it's like practice and get your technical stuff down. That's the stuff you don't want to show at a festival. But yeah, rejecting an artist. So I know how those artists feel, but it's good. It's a good sign that they're getting more artists than they can actually take.
Yeah, that is really good.
And maybe in future years they'll be able to add more. Yeah,
I think they said they're going to be doing it at a different venue than the actual parking lot area, so that they can accommodate more people, because this would be their second year only doing it.
I mean, think about how many parking lots are in the Lehigh Valley. I mean, come on. You can really pack some of these places out if you do them at the right thing.
Absolutely.
We have no shortage of parking lots in Lehigh Valley.
No.
Did you do playback?
Yes,
yeah.
I did.
How was that for you?
I really enjoyed it. It was my first year.
I love that event so much.
Yeah.
But see, it's not a good event for me to vend or even go to, because like when I vend, I'm spending way more money than I'm making. There are a lot of guys that sell old records, right? Old blues and jazz records especially. They are my kryptonite. And some of those records are not cheap. I mean,
no.
20, 30, 40 bucks easy for a record. You can't just buy one record.
Yeah.
Did you buy anything there?
I didn't. I always have to kind of like hold myself back a bit. Plus, I'm usually vending by myself, so I don't get to always go around.
You should have flagged me down.
Nah,
I would have watched. Well, you probably saved yourself money by not doing that, though.
Yeah, I have to make sure I try to at least make it more than what I paid to be there, and then I'm pretty set for the day.
Excellent. And I don't know if you know this, but Peter actually got into a gallery up in Brooklyn.
Yeah, you were telling me the other day.
Yeah, oh yeah, I did mention it too. Yeah, it's on Friday, October 11th. We're probably going to go up there. And the reason I mention it, aside from I know that you wanted to go support Peter, is I like the fact, again, not having to go to things on your own, but as a small group.
Yes.
Especially like Philly and New York. That's really cool. To be able to, because there's going to be a ton of people there.
Yeah.
And we can cover more ground by all of us talking to people. I think that is a key, is for creative friends and artists to actually take these little trips together to go to these places.
Absolutely.
If you have the chance to go, you gonna come with us?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah? Where else would you like to go? Like, is there anywhere on your list that you're trying to hit?
Eventually, I'd love to go to like the West Coast, like Seattle area, and go see like the hikes up there. They have like a rainforest.
Oh yeah, they got a lot of them up there.
Yeah, I really just want to go see one of those and see all the mushrooms there and all the bugs. And
you love your bugs.
I love bugs so much.
Even as a kid, you like bugs?
No.
No,
that became a fear that I had to get over. And then when I started doing macro photography is when I really started to actually enjoy and see how cool and how diverse the bugs were. And I'm like, I started researching them into them more, and I felt more comfortable with it.
when you find a dead bug, do you pick it up?
Yes.
Yeah?
It depends on what kind.
Okay, well, I will start collecting dead bugs for you because I find them all the time.
Oh, I go up the stairs sometimes instead of the elevator, and I'll find a whole bunch of cool ones.
Our stairwell, yes, it is an environment unto itself with those, sometimes the windows are open and all kinds of crazy things get in. The moths up there.
Yes.
Some big ones, too.
I found a big beetle the other day.
Really?
It was like, oh my gosh.
It's always a good day when you find a beetle and not a roach.
That and cicadas. Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
they're
those
beautiful.
Yeah.
They're so cool.
They only come out, every few years, right?
Every few years, yeah. And my friends will always ask me, like, hey, I found this bug. Do you want it? I'm like, what kind is it? If it's a millipede or one of those house centipedes, I don't want it.
Well, and this was the summer of cicadas, wasn't it? They came back out this year.
Yeah, I think there were like 2 different like broods that were emerging. I don't think that would happen in PA. I think we got our regular cicadas, but everybody was like freaking out and cooking them. And
you're opening your window in your studio with a net trying to catch them all as they fly by.
Yeah, if I could.
What about spotted lanternflies? You like those things?
I'll kill them because it's good for the environment.
Yeah, invasive. I mean, obviously you don't like them in that way, but I mean,
I want to make an art piece out of them though.
Yeah, Monica has one down there too.
I know,
Remember that on the pizza topping? Yeah, I thought it was a clever one.
Yeah, make some art out of it.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned how you didn't like bugs as a kid, but then grew into it. That's how I was with tornadoes. When I was a child, I was terrified of tornadoes for no reason. I found out what a tornado was. I saw videos probably on the Weather Channel of a tornado, and I convinced myself I'm going to die in a tornado today. I was terrified of it, right? And then the movie Twister came out. You ever see Twister?
Yes, I have.
Great film.
Yeah.
And that movie, 180. I went from being terrified of tornadoes to I'm going to go chase those motherfuckers.
Sometimes you need a different perspective on things to be able to think of it differently.
And that was the first movie I saw Philip Seymour Hoffman in. So what's next for you after the show? Are you planning any new series or anything like that?
I just have some kind of like one-off pieces, things like that. I think this is my last month for vending for a little bit, and then I'm going to take a break and focus on creating more for myself and without any super huge deadlines coming up.
And you do commissions too.
Yeah, I do just smaller commissions for now. I kind of have a boundary of that so that I don't overwork myself and I can still create for myself.
Very good. You want to say anything else about your show coming up at Bradbury-Sullivan?
It's going to be a great time. Come out and see it. It's some really cool work and be a good time.
And that show, again, is called Metamorphosis at the Bradbury-Sullivan Center in downtown Allentown, right between 5th and 6th Street. Kind of...
on Maple.
It's like a hidden little street that it's on. It's always...
Yeah, there's a parking lot, though.
And it's only a half block from America, so we need to coordinate with them more, maybe do some openings in the same night.
Yeah, absolutely.
We should do that in the future. We were...
do an opening walk.
I was in over my head with Peter's show because I was doing all the printing and all that with him. So next time when we do something in the Americas, which is going to be in January, I have somebody curating a group show with Philly artists.
Oh, fun.
So we'll have to coordinate with other places in and around that area. And that show, Kylie's opening Metamorphosis, is this Thursday, October 3rd from 6 to 8 p.m. And it is going to be on display throughout the month of October, correct?
Yes.
And you can check it out, bradburysullivancenter.org/metamorphosis. Of course, that's going to be in the show notes. And once again, we've been chatting with Kylee Tirado, visual artist from Allentown, working in various mediums, including illustration, painting, and photography. You can view Kylie's work by visiting their Instagram at Kylee.Tirado. And once again, one last time, this Thursday, October 3rd, is Kylie's solo show opening, 6 to 8 p.m. at Bradbury-Sullivan, Metamorphosis, on display throughout the month of October, in case you're one of those unlucky folks that cannot come out and hang out on Thursday with all of us. Kylee, thanks for joining Art Bazaar.
Thanks for having me, man.
We love having you here in the building. Of course, we're going to be at your show. We're going to tell people about it. This episode is going to come out the day before, so if you're listening to this on Wednesday or Thursday this week, make sure you get out to Kylie's show and support. And if not, send Kylee a message and ask them how much money they want for their amazing work, because they deserve it.
Heck yeah.
And if you're enjoying the Art Bazaar podcast, please help us grow by liking and subscribing to the podcast. We want to reach a worldwide audience to help bring attention to all of the amazing creators and unique folks we bring on. They certainly deserve it. And that's all for now. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you next time on Art Bazaar.